Welcome back to In the House with Beth and Ryan. I'm Beth, and this is Ryan.
Today, we are going to take a look at the February sales because they're now in and give you a summary of what happened. And it was slow. It was slower than we would have expected, slower than many prior years as well. And we're also going to talk a little bit about the early spring market and what we think could happen.
So February as a whole was definitely slow. Typically, in a typical February in the Guelph real estate market sees inventory levels start to climb again.
Yep.
Usually at the end of the year in December, we see levels kind of peter out. Oftentimes listings that didn't sell get pulled from the market and they come back through January and February. And we have started to see that happening towards the end of February and into the beginning of March now. But definitely we're not seeing inventory levels where we would normally see them by this point in the market.
No, we're about 5% below where we were in December, which usually, I'd have to take a look back, but I think usually we're greater than December by this point. But
Right.
yeah, it's definitely been a slow start. We're starting to see this week, first week of March, that things that were canceled at the end of last year are starting to appear back on the market.
Yeah. And some new inventory
And some new
to
inventory.
trickle in as well.
Yeah, we just thought, and I think many people thought, that they would see newer listings and canceled listings come back to the market
Yeah.
much earlier than we've seen. And there were a few reasons, I think, why that may be. And one of the most common ones we've heard lately, which our clients have brought up, but I think there's some truth to it, is that the bad weather, or some people say it was great weather,
Yeah.
depending on whether you like it or not, the snowy weather kept people away from houses.
Yeah.
I
Both
guess-
buyers and sellers, interestingly, seem to be.
Yeah. And I guess, there's a comment about how, if you're serious about buying a house, a little bit of snow on the ground isn't going to keep you from looking, but it does play a factor when you are starting to look and you decide you want to hold on for another week or two because there's a snowstorm coming or you're coming from out of town and
Right.
the weather is bad.
Or knowing that maybe if you want to buy a house, you're going to then quickly have to sell your house
Yeah.
also after.
Yeah.
So people are kind of holding back a little bit.
Yeah. And sellers as well, they like to wait until the snow is melted and in an ideal world and the pool is open and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So we do get that. But statistically, we found that towards the end of February was a great week to sell because buyers are starting to look and early sellers may be able to take advantage of lower inventories. So we did see a bit of a bump up towards the end of February, but in totality, it was the slowest February that we have seen in many years, on top of what was the slowest volume January we had seen in many years. So it's got to come back at some point, I think. And maybe it's in March that we're going to see that rise in inventory. So in the month of February, there were 105 sales, which works out to be about 3.7 per day, lower than the 4 average from last year. And of those, 36 were condo townhouses or anything with a fee.
Mhm.
And the remaining 69 were the detached segment.
Of the condos that sold, the most affordable condo was in the West End in Onward Willow,
Mhm.
and it sold for $312,000, which we haven't seen condos at that price in a little while now.
Yeah.
So it's a reasonable price for somebody who's trying to get into the market as a
Yeah.
first-time buyer.
Maybe we'll break 300 and get into the twos again.
It could happen.
Yep.
And then the most expensive one was downtown, and it went for $835.
Yep.
As mentioned, the overall average was around $542,000, which is down a little bit from what we saw last.
Last summer. So last summer at the peak, it was close to 600 for a couple of months. I think that was probably around June or so. And then towards the end of the year, there were a couple updates that I had that were close to 500,000. So at 542, we're sitting in the middle, and we did see a bit of life come to the condo market in February. Historically, we have seen a little bit less than 1 per day on average sell. And in February, we had 36 sales in 28 days or 1.3. So there was a little more activity in the condo market than we've seen in the last little while. But still,
The prices are softening. We're seeing of the 36 that sold, only 2 went over asking.
Yep.
And only 2 sold at the final kind of asking
Right.
price. All the rest of them
88%.
88%, right? Were negotiated down to some number below
Yeah.
the asking price.
Yeah.
So there is room in that segment of the market to negotiate.
Yeah, and that's because we're sitting at close to 9 months of inventory in the condo segment. So we're firmly in buyer territory. And I think, any listing agent who has a condo or a townhouse right now, we do, they are slow. There are fewer showings. Offers tend to come in, they could be pretty low. They could be definitely, but they're definitely being negotiated as the numbers are showing.
So the message there is things are selling in that segment of the market, but you really need to have your price on point. And of course, you want your property to show in the best light possible so that when buyers are comparing properties, yours really shines through and the price makes sense. Moving on to the detached and semi-detached market, but freehold, so no condo fees here. In the month of February, we saw 69 properties sell, with the most affordable property being in the ward, selling for $345,000. But it's a little misleading because that was just a vacant lot. But it does still fall into that category. And then the most expensive property was in Old University, and that sold for $1.4 million. That's a neighborhood that always holds its value.
It tends to.
We do often see some of the more expensive numbers coming in from that neighborhood.
Yeah, 1.4 million in Old University is actually a pretty common number. It's nothing unusual there. Of the homes that sold, this is an interesting part of the real estate market within Guelph right now, is that the detached segment under the average, so under 808,000, it is getting a bit competitive. And we were watching this, I think we commented on it last month, where if you have a detached home, and in particular, if you have a bungalow, they are really moving. And we saw about a quarter of the sales in February in the detached segment sell over the asking price.
So 1 in 4 houses selling over asking, which is notable.
Which is notable for sure, because in a market where, unlike condos, where it's firmly a buyer's market, to have over asking on a segment is really interesting. It goes to show that there are buyers out there looking and waiting, but there's not the inventory that they want. There's not enough selection for them, or the type of specific house they're looking for, they can't find. So when one does come on the market, it seems that there's more than one person who jumps on it and wants to buy it. And this is not a scenario where it's artificially priced low in order to draw in as many offers as possible. In many cases, it's priced very close to, or maybe slightly under market value, and it gets driven up because there is demand out there. 2/3 or 65% of the units that sold in detached did sell under the asking. So the majority are still selling under asking, but there is a pocket, a segment of the market that is competitive.
That is between that $600,000 to $800,000 in that range.
Yeah, the majority of the houses that sold over asking in February were under the average price. So, so if you do have one of those and you're thinking about selling it, as far as competitive offers go right now, that is an in-demand segment. Whether it will stay like that is to be seen, but right now it definitely is.
And in particular, we noticed in and around the downtown area is where we're seeing that happen in particular. Another segment of the market that we tend to break down and look at separately is the $1 million plus market in Guelph. Historically, that makes up about 15 to 20% of houses sold in Guelph. And we've noticed in the last few months that number as a percentage is slowly declining.
Yeah. And it's now almost, instead of 15 to 20, it's almost 10 to 15% because prices are
falling,
slowly coming down. And as a result, there's just not that much of the segment of the market that's over that $1 million segment. So we'll continue to watch that. Just on another note, all of the details and a lot more of the data that we have is on our blog, which we'll link at the bottom of this. But if you're really into the numbers, it gets into the weeds. Okay, so if we take a look at where we're at year to date, that would be January 1st until February 28th versus the same period last year. We watched 3 metrics. One of them is the number of houses that sell. The next one is the total dollar volume of houses that sell. So that's if you just simply added up all of the sale prices. And then we look at the average price as well. So where are we rolling up?
So in terms of number of houses that have sold, that number is down. 16% fewer transactions during January and February of this year compared to last year.
Yeah, and that seems dramatic, but it's actually just 35 houses. It's not a
Right.
huge number,
Well,
but
because January and February are not the busiest months in general, but still it is down.
it is down.
Something that indicates
Yep.
what's happening in
Yep.
the market.
Yeah.
In terms of the dollar volume, so total dollar volumes, that number is down too, and it's down 23%.
That's a big number.
Yeah.
So that's a total of 131 million this year versus 169 million the same period last year.
And then the final metric we look at is the average price. So this incorporates all different types of properties, condos, freehold, detached, semis, all of them. And that number is also down 7.5%.
Right. That's 727,000 as the average this year versus 786,000 as the average last year. And as we always tell people, this is an average, so it doesn't mean every single house is down 7.5%.
Some will be down more and some will be
down less.
Down less.
It's an average. Yep. If we look towards March and April, and if we had a crystal ball, we could tell you what we think. But
people ask us to do
people
all the time.
and I don't. Who knows whether we have the thing is with this? It's like the weather. You could just say anything. You could say, I think it's going to be a really bad or great spring. I mean, it's impossible to know, obviously, but we anticipate that just based on what's going on in the market, that over the full year, we're actually going to see more houses sell. So although we're down now, January and February are pretty light months. So we anticipate that the big bulk of the volume will come in April, May, and June, and that we anticipate more houses will sell this year than sold last year, but that the average price will decline.
But not dramatically.
No.
It's going to be, we feel like the market will be fairly stable.
Yeah.
But that there may be a slight decline in prices.
Yeah. So we are definitely off to a rocky start for the year, but giving it some context, they are some of the slower months of the year. So when bigger volume months start rolling around, the numbers will correct a little bit. And we do believe that they're going to get better. As in they will be less negative than they are now.
And as an overall look at the market today and moving into the next few months, it is balanced overall. So it's not a bad time to buy and it's not a bad time to sell. Things are moving at a reasonable pace. You have time to do some negotiation. You can incorporate all your conditions and make sure that you're doing your due diligence as a buyer. So it's actually a healthy market from that perspective.
So if you do have any questions on the Guelph real estate market, anything that we can help you with, you can always find us on our website at bethandryan.ca, and I will link a few relevant things below this. See you next month.